Hi WAMers, we're continuing with 8.1 today with a Brain Pop video. So for those of you who don't know what Brain Pop is, it is a division-wide resource. So if you go to www.brainpop.com, the username is St. Bruce School and the password is BrainPop. This is not a secret. If you want to use this website at home, there's lots of great games and resources for you to use. Then you're going to search budget after you've logged in and click on this to play the video. So please watch that now. Then we're going to prepare a budget for Billy based on this paragraph. So he gets $15 per week to deliver paper. He also, though, has to get his bicycle tuned up, which costs about $20 a month. Now that would be a fixed expense because it happens every month and it must happen. Not month, it should be month. He also has to pay an extra $5 for a new tire. So that's a one-time thing, but it is still necessary. So this is just once. On his birthday, he got a check for 30 bucks. So 30 bucks, but that's just, again, once. He went then and blew that 30 bucks on a video game, which would be a non-expense or non-essential expense, but also a one-time thing. So now we need to figure out his total income, his total expenses, and his total savings. So this one here is per week. We need to figure out per month. So if we know how much he makes a week, we know that there are 52 weeks in a year, which gives us $780. But then we need to divide that by 12 to figure out how much he makes per month. So it's $65 per month. So 65 there, 30 was his birthday gift, so he made $95 this month. His expenses are exactly as we listed them, so the total expenses is $75. That means since he made 95, spent 75, he saved a total of 20. So then we're going to do activity 8.1, which is startup versus operating costs. So startup costs are amount paid before a business begins operating. These are often one-time costs. Examples of this are safety gear, tools, and uniforms. Operating expenses are recurring, so they keep happening, such as gas, monthly telephone bills, and annual truck insurance. So let's look at the following scenario. Here we have in high school, Roman was on the yearbook for 3 years and discovered he loved taking pictures. So then he wanted to start a photography course and then open a studio. He'll have to purchase equipment and rent a location for indoor photo shoots. The table below are some of the costs and expenses he expects to have before startup and once his business is operating. So he needs to buy a camera, which is $3 grand. He needs to have the accessories for the camera, which is $4,150. Prints, which are $115, and his monthly rent, which is $1,600. So this is a very incomplete list of expenses. He's going to have to pay a lot more than that. Make a list of other expenses and research on the internet the cost of each of these. Remember that he needs to pay himself a wage also. So some things that he might be forgetting are his wage. So then look on the internet what a good wage would be. Also bills. So what kind of bills would you have to pay if you're running a studio? And look up the cost of those also. Number 2, we need to divide the expenses provided and the ones you research into startup costs and operating expenses. So some startup costs would be things such as the camera and the camera accessories. Recurring expenses would be things such as prints and monthly rent. So those would be like your operating expenses. However, you should have a whole nother big list, so try and separate these now into operating expenses and startup costs. When I did this, I figured out that the startup costs of everything should be about $20,310, and that his operating expenses would be about $65,790 per year. So that seems quite high, but if you are starting a business, it does cost quite a bit of money. So when you're coming up and doing this activity, if your numbers are large like that, that might be quite accurate. How much does he need to start his photography business? Now again, your number will be different than mine because I researched other costs maybe than you did, but just add up all his startup costs. Number 4, how much money does he need to earn in 1 year to cover his startup costs and operating expenses? So we need to add these together. The total startup costs that you got plus the operating expenses of 1 year. So add these up to get your total. So go ahead, you can do this on your own. Come up with a list, figure out operating and startup, and then your total in 1 year.